he says. Hey guys, I'm Si and welcome to the episode number 39 of the Andy Campbell Show, only on Ace Podcast Nation. On the channel, we've got all sorts of podcasts and series from football, mental health, MMA and boxing, films and TV, conspiracy theories and more. We have our unique series, My Story, which we have a new episode dropping this Sunday with actor, writer, broadcaster Tom Watt, who used to play Lofty in EastEnders, which is a really interesting show. I'm also recording episode number 5 of that series tomorrow with Cardiff City legend Scott Young, which is going to be exceptionally good fun. We also have Unscripted and Uncensored, where we've pretty much had every Cage Warriors fighter ever appear, as well as some UFC guys, some boxers, some footballers. Of course, Super Kev was a very popular addition to that series. And yeah, we've got everything. You can have video versions of all our shows. YouTube.com/Ace Podcast Nation. Please subscribe. It's the best way to support the channel and the show. And of course, the audio versions are available everywhere. All the podcasting radio apps you can think of, you'll find us there. Ace Podcast Nation. At least 4 new shows per week. And today, of course, we are talking football. I mentioned Scott Young. Of course, Cardiff City legend. But speaking of legends, I am joined by 2 today. A couple of bona fide heroes. Joining me tonight, first we have my usual partner in crime, former Premier League striker, king of the second worst town in the UK. Cardiff City legend.
Facts.
Facts. We only speak facts. The master of the toe poke. The speed demon, Davy Jones's favourite son, the goal collector, Mr. Andy Campbell. Welcome, my friend. How are you?
I'm all right, mate. Yeah. I'm well sick of this rubbish. Already, this is. I've been looking forward to this show for so long. It's been unbelievable. Since last Monday's show finished, this has been my focus for the week.
Getting through to the next Monday. And of course, joining us is former Wales international, ex-West Ham, QPR, Palace, and in my opinion, the most talented defender to ever play for Cardiff City, Mr. Danny Gabbidon. How are you, sir?
I'm very well. So you're too kind, my friend. What an introduction that was for AC as well. I was a little bit worried there coming second.
Hey, we all work on facts in here, Gabbs. We work on facts as well.
Thank you.
All right, it's all good. Davy Jones's favourite son.
Thanks for having me on, chaps. Thanks for having me on. Yeah. It's an absolute pleasure to be here.
Looking forward to this. Been looking forward to it for ages. When we found out, mate, when you agreed to come on, we've been really looking forward to it. We've been trying to get you on for ages, as you well know, and as people obviously who watch us and listen to us. This has been a long nagging of Danny to get him on. Yeah, we tried to get him on. Yeah, but busy man, and we've finally got him in during lockdown.
Been plotted, haven't we?
Yeah, of course it is.
Lockdown.
How you finding lockdown, Gabbs? How you I know we've been going on about it, and obviously it's the most surreal thing that probably I'd ever witnessed and I'd ever dreamed about being into. But what have you been up to as well?
It's been difficult, to be fair. I was just saying to Si before we came on here, it's more like the kids really more than anything. I've not been too bad. You obviously have some days where you're a bit more down than others, and you wake up and there's not a lot of things you can do anyway, but just trying to get that kind of motivation to, whether it's to go for a walk or a run, whether it's doing some stuff around the house which you haven't done for should have done ever. Probably 3 or 4 years ago, stuff like ever. It's just getting that kind of purpose that when you get up to keep yourself motivated to do something. So some days have been harder than others, but it's more really the kids, I'd say, trying to keep them occupied. And like my stepdaughter's 14, so it's been quite difficult for her because she's kind of at that age anyway, I think, with the hormones are flying about anyway and stuff like that. So trying to, she's been a bit low, but my little one, he's 4, and he's hasn't, to be fair, because he just doesn't have to go to nursery, so he's quite happy to be in the house, kind of thing. So, but it's been tough, but you've got to try and stay positive as much as you can, haven't you, I suppose. So.
Yeah, well, we've said that. We've, you know what I mean. This has obviously been we've not stopped because we try to keep ourselves going. We try to keep everyone else going with different things and talking about and things. But it's those hard days, those hard, probably like you say, when you wake up, there's got to be a purpose to something. And for me, the purpose is, I don't know, getting dressed, staying in a routine. Maybe he's going out for a walk, going out for a run, having breakfast. You know what I mean? And I would hate to be a young kid now and having to go through this because yes, they've got all the things that they've ever wanted, social media, devices left, right and centre and ways of talking to their friends, but you can't beat just going out and doing what you want when you want. And, the kids are the ones who are missing out, and that parents around the world will probably realise right at this minute how important schools are just for a bit of peace of mind, but just to get kids being kids again, because that's where you learn your most. Not as in education, but just growing up and being a young human being and just living a young life,
Yeah, I'm leaving that comment up there because loads of people were there just going, "Oh, two legends. Danny's a legend. Andy's a legend." And I was reading through all the comments. I was like, "All right, okay."
Screenshot that.
Yeah. So I'm going to keep that up there for the whole show.
Yeah, I'll take a photo now of it for you. There you go.
I'll apologise to anyone whose questions I miss tonight, because I can tell you already, between Facebook, YouTube and Periscope, we just had about 1 million comments come through. So I'm going to try my best to keep up with them all. Lee Harborfield says, question, what's happening with the championship going forward? Any news? So basically, there isn't any clear news, is there?
It's changing on a daily basis, isn't it? I think the whole of football is, and you know what I mean. If you read the Wales Online, that it doesn't look like it's going to happen, but you read the local paper up here that they're really positive, thinking it's going to happen. And from a Middlesbrough point of view, you know what I mean. Obviously, Gabbs has watched a lot of football this year, especially Championship football. That Middlesbrough want the season to end. They want it to end they want it to end in August. Never mind, it's finished now. They, you know what I mean. So if they finish now, they stay up. You know what I mean. I don't think there will be any relegation because it's just the most surreal situation we've ever been in. But you know what I mean. Why certain football clubs are want this to stay on is just beyond me. Spatty's a good mate of mine, by the way. So they can't be on about me because mine's only slight. It's you two. That.
I had a shave this week. I'll have you know.
You're like Homer Simpson.
So, I am interested to hear what Danny thinks about many things, but particularly about what should happen with the season. Obviously, we've been debating it for weeks on and off. We talked to Super Kev about it. We talked between ourselves, and we've also, we've talked to all the people who watch and listen. And
yeah.
The general consensus, I think, certainly from my side, has been that I think it should finish. I think that, life's more important. Let's just forget about football. Hopefully we can start again in September. And I know that's harsh on certain clubs, but it is what it is. It's a global pandemic. It's unprecedented. Obviously, the FA and everyone is very keen to get it going. I read just about an hour before we come on, that there's at least 8 clubs, I think, which don't want the season to start or be finished in the Premier League for various reasons. What do you think, Dan? Like, generally, what do you think they should do with the season?
Take your Liverpool hat off, Danny Gabbidon, first, please.
Oh, no.
I thought I'd get that one in.
Cut him off quick.
Know, mate. Yeah. No, I am a Liverpool fan. I'd like to see them be awarded the title, but if that, I think I think life is much more important. I think that's one of the big I've kind of realised in these last kind of 5-6 weeks. I haven't really given that much thought to football with what's been going on. My main, my and I could probably.
Oh no. Danny, you're breaking up a little bit, mate. Go out, and then come back in again.
Look, I think it's going to get to a point where they're going to have to probably call the season and say, look, we're done and dusted. And then it's what do you do? There is no right or wrong answer, I don't think. Whatever they do or whatever they decide, it's going to affect some. But I'm a little bit with you, Si, where I think if you're going to call the league and say it's done, that's it. Where teams are, the positions that they're in, that is it. What they've done in the French league or whatever. I think you award the league to Liverpool. So that's unprecedented circumstance as well. The points lead that they have, no one's going to catch them. So I think, maybe you can award them as champions, and then I think whoever's in the relegation positions gets relegated. I think it's as simple as that.
Harsh.
But obviously, that's not going to please everybody.
No.
It is harsh, but what
Gabbs,
what else
you've
do you do? I'm not really.
You've obviously spoke to some players through things that you do out of football. What are their consensus? Like, what do they want? What do they want? And what they expecting to happen?
Danny's frozen up, mate. I'm gonna take him out. He's gonna have to come back in.
All right.
In the hands of technology, mate.
So we've been speaking about this, haven't we? You're interested in the question I've just asked there, Danny, and I'm going to ask him again when he comes back on. But obviously, I know he's been speaking. He's been doing a few live. He's been doing a few live chats on Instagram and things, which I've watched, and with certain players. And so, Dan, what do players? Is he not back yet?
No, he's gonna have to go right out of it. I don't know what it is. I think it's just there's so many people on like the internet and using these kinds of software. It's just impossible to. I don't know whether it's like the software and the internet just can't cope with the amount of people.
Yeah.
See if he's back.
Back?
He froze up there.
Are you back, Dan?
Yeah. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yeah, I can hear you, Dan. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So, the question I was asking there, Dan, was obviously you speak to a lot of players and you've done a lot of chats, obviously during lockdown on Instagram and stuff, and obviously probably over the phone, face to face, via Zoom and stuff. What's their consensus? What do they expect to happen? What do they want to happen?
They want to get back playing. They just want to get back playing. As simple as that. I think I think we would be exactly the same, mate. If we were still playing, missing that routine of training and playing games. I think they just feel like they don't really have a purpose at the minute. That's all they're kind of used to doing. So they're desperate to get the season up and running. Particularly, speaking to some of the parents as well, the dads of the players, particularly some of the players who I look after, to see their young lads kind of get back playing as well, because they just feel like they're wasting time almost. You know what I mean? So it's a difficult one, as we say. I think I'm sure there will be players that maybe don't want to go back and play. Are quite worried about what's going on and for their safety and stuff. But everyone that I've kind of spoken to, they're just desperate to get back playing. They're obviously following these fitness programs. They're in the back gardens, whatever they're doing, they're going on the runs and stuff. There's only so much of that you can kind of do. Some of the lads haven't kicked the ball properly for 5-6 weeks. So the general thing is they're desperate to kind of get back playing.
But what about the issue that I've got, and I've had all the way through, and it's never changed my stance on it. What about contracts? So obviously, as we know, contracts finish on June the 30th. You can sign for a new club, which some players will have done. They'll sign a pre-contract agreement for July the 1st at a new club. Some will be out of contract, unemployed. How does do you know any players who are out of contract? Who do they want to still play? Do they want to put a move at risk? That's the questions that I would love to know the answers to. Yeah,
well, these are the different scenarios that this crazy thing has kind of thrown up. To be fair, and it's so hard to. There's so many that even, you said that there. I'd never really kind of probably thought of that scenario. So it's, you just don't know what's going to happen. We don't. If or whatever, is it going to have to be a roll-off? I don't know. As you said, players might not want to come back and play in case they get injured and then have a contract.
But I'm only saying that because I do know there's a player at Middlesbrough who has signed a pre-contract agreement, another club. The club hasn't been announced. Obviously, the player, you know what I mean. So he's in limbo at the minute. You know what I mean. So you've got, you know what I mean. So does he risk a potential move? For me, at his age, this would be a final move of his career. You know what I mean. This might be a final payday, something that he can retire on. So you know what I mean. As a family, as a player, as as an agent, would you want your player to take a risk and play an extra month of the season to get injured, to scupper a move? The whole thing's just, I don't think it's been thought about for those kind of players. And you know what I mean? I heard the Plymouth manager was on Sky doing a good chat, that he said when the league does go through to July the 1st, he'll have 6 players to pick from because everyone else is out of contract. He said some of the players will want to play, some of them are unsure because they don't want to get injured. And he said we're in a position where we can get promoted this season, and we probably would have been promoted. But now he said he's not so sure how to go forward with this. And I just think the whole thing's just I don't know. It's taken. If the decision's taken out of your hands, if the FA say they've got to extend contracts, or FIFA or UEFA say the whole thing's voided across the world, it just makes it easy for players, for me, and then managers and supporters. Then we know what's going on because when Kev was on 2 or 3 weeks ago, Scotland cancelled, France have cancelled, Holland have cancelled. You know what I mean? It looks non-league have cancelled in England. You know what I mean? League 2 and League 1 look like they're doing something different to the Championship. For me, they all interlink. So for me, if they all in one in, one in all in, we all do the same thing and move on together, I think. But that's my own opinion. But
yeah, I mean, in my opinion, I think FIFA should have stepped in probably about a fortnight ago at least and said, look, we got to void everything. We got to start again in September. The transfer window's open, so clubs can sort out their contracts and players and stuff. And I understand that Liverpool are so far ahead, but mathematically they haven't won it. I think there was one team, I think, which has mathematically been promoted. They've been promoted or they've won the league in one of the leagues in Europe. So obviously, I think that's got to stand because they've mathematically achieved it. Whereas if it's not been achieved, I think you can't give it. And I also think it kind of takes the edge off it. Like you mentioned last week, and like Liverpool fans won't be able to celebrate winning the league. They won't be able to have an open bus tour and things like this.
Well, not just that side as well. As a player, you know what I mean, Dan? I've been promoted twice. Got promoted to Middlesbrough, obviously promoted with yourself to Cardiff. That how would we have felt getting promoted in front of no fans? You know what I mean? It would have been that's what made the day, seeing everyone excited. You know what I mean? Yes, we did it for ourselves as well, but you know what I mean? Football is for fans and football is for everybody else as well as ourselves. And I just think it would be the most surreal thing ever. Liverpool winning the first title in God forever, it seems like, and not be able to celebrate with supporters and people celebrating at home because they can't even go to the pubs to watch it as well. So it's going to be, I don't know, you know what I mean? So I would like the season to finish. I've said all along, but for me, you do it. For me, I'd cancel next season or do something really random next year and not have a league and have cups or something, because I just think that the whole thing about football is fans, and there's no football without supporters for me. And you know what I mean? It'd be like playing Ponting's reserve games every single Saturday, and it's just been the most surreal, boring thing ever. Because I used to hate not playing in front of people. Yeah. You know what I mean? But that's just the way it is, I guess.
Yeah.
So. The other aspect of it is when all these players come. So the rumor is they're going to do this thing with either neutral grounds or at St George's Park, and kind of make it like a tournament. And teams will be holed up in hotels, isolated from family and from other people. But the other issue is, and we have talked about this on previous shows a little bit, is if players come back and they test positive. So you've got, I think it was Cologne in the Bundesliga.
Yeah.
I think they had a few players who tested positive. I think in total in Germany,
3.
I think there was it 10 though in total from other teams as well?
Yeah, there's been a few more now. Yeah, so Cologne are 3, and obviously they've got to self-isolate for 2 weeks and be away from the group. And my only concern there is if that's Liverpool and you have Van Dijk, Salah, Mane, they're your 3 players. And that's probably a daft example because Liverpool are going to win the league. Let's say it's Villa and it's Jack Grealish. It's 3 of the best players, and they get relegated because of 3 players contracting this illness, and they're not allowed to play. Just defeats the whole object of bringing everybody back for football, because the whole thing is everybody's got to be safe, healthy, and well. And if people aren't safe, healthy, and well, then what's the point? There's no point doing it. No point playing.
I think while people are still dying, I don't think you can have people running around playing football. It's as simple as that. I think until they can sort a vaccine and things, and I just can't see how it can happen. And I think we'd all like to see the league conclude. That would be the first option. You want to see everybody come back and the league concluded. But the longer this kind of goes on, and as you say, marrying up, AC with the other leagues as well. There's other leagues that have already cancelled and stuff, and all the leagues do work in tandem and stuff. So how long are we going to leave it when other leagues have already cancelled, and then trying to marry up for next season and stuff? It's just going to be... I feel for the FA and stuff, to be fair, because, obviously you couldn't foresee this kind of coming. And no matter what you kind of come up with, someone's kind of going to be affected by it, I suppose. It's going to be unfair to someone. So I think they just... Their wits end a little bit with it. They don't really know what to do, do they? They really don't know what to do.
But... that's the thing as well. People, it's rivalry as well. You know what I mean? Man United fans want the league cancelled because they don't want Liverpool to win the league. I think every fan in the Championship doesn't want Leeds to win the league, and it's just, you know what I mean? I want teams to deserve and earn the right to get promoted and earn the right to stay up. I've said all along, I want the league to conclude in the Championship because I want Middlesbrough to stay up and stay up in the right way. I want Middlesbrough to show that they're good enough to stay in the Championship. If they go down, they go down. And that's because they're one of the three worst teams in the league. If the league gets cancelled and stay up, I'll be over the moon. But I really want them to prove that they're good enough to stay up because they are good enough. Likewise, I want Cardiff to have an opportunity to get in the playoffs. And the only way to do that is by concluding the season. Because if the season finishes today or tomorrow, or in 2 weeks' time, they're stuck in the Championship for another season. And probably the chances are they will be in there anyway. But it's while people are dying, you know what I mean? For me, it's a no-brainer, and football should not even be contemplating going back in probably less than 2 weeks. I think the date is 16th, going back to training. You know what I mean? How you can keep a 2 metre distance in training, you know what I mean, and do proper football training is beyond me because
impossible.
Yeah.
And what do you do when you play the games?
It depends who you're at. It depends who you're at, because if you're as good as Danny, you probably don't get anywhere near him. So it's probably a 3 metre gap, not a 2 metre gap.
So Johnny Wish just made a good point there. It's the knock-on effect, which for the Euros as well. So if they're desperately trying to finish this season, which I understand, everyone wants to finish it, but if you don't finish it until October, it's the knock-on effect into next season. You've got the Euros next summer. You've got the Olympics. You've got, I think, the African Cup of Nations is coming back. You've got all these tournaments. The players are not going to have a break because it's going to be constant football where they're trying to play catch-up. So what are we now? We're already into May. You have to have a cut-off point where you say, right, enough's enough. We've got to just void it. But I believe that whatever decision is made, it has to be made in every single league in Europe and around the world. It cannot be different for the Premier League to what it is in the Championship or in Germany or Spain, because remembering, there's Champions League football, which all those the top clubs from each of these leagues, they all compete against each other. So surely they have to have the same rules applied to ensure the integrity of all the different tournaments. I don't know what you think about that.
Well, we've always said, haven't we, that players, Danny will agree with me here, that players need a break, mental break, physical break, and at the minute players haven't had a break because they've been, like Danny said, they've been training probably harder, some of them, than they will have done playing football, because training on your own is so mentally tough. It's so demanding. You know what I mean? They'll have been on the streets, they'll have been on the grass trying to find pitches somewhere to train on their own. It's so demanding that because they've got to come back in peak shape to go back to training. And then if they do come back, play straight into another season, you know what I mean? That yes, they do get well paid, but they still deserve a break. You know what I mean? That you've had a promotion season, a relegation season, an injury hit season, an average season with performances. You need a break to rest the mind, rest the body, and then move on. So you've just said there about players not getting a break. They're not going to get a break for about 2 years, maybe 3 years, depending on how good you are. The elite players with this scenario, if they go to play 2 seasons on the belt, then a Euros, then another season, they're not going to get any kind of a break, and that's when injuries happen. And you know what I mean? Then career-threatening injuries, tiredness, loss of form, and it could have an adverse effect on football for me if this isn't sorted out quickly, because players, they just want to know what's going to happen. And yes, we all want them to come back. I want them to come back for my own sanity. I want them to come back for their own sanity. But at the same time, I think we just want a decision instead of getting another week, waiting for the government to make a decision on lockdown, on a host of other decisions about education going back, football, elite sport going back. It's just, for me, make a decision, stick by it, take the stick or take the plaudits, whatever it may be, and then stick to it and just roll with it.
Yeah, indeed. The other thing, I think UEFA have asked all the European leagues for a decision by the 25th of May, which, it does give them another, 21 days to kind of make that decision. But the thing which struck me, they don't seem to be including the players in these meetings and there seems to be a lot of, speculation about what they're going to do, but no one's asking the players, are you happy to play, or what do you think? Or, I don't know what you think about that, Danny. Oh, Danny's frozen up again. Are you there, Dan? No, he's frozen. So, what do you think? Oh, he's back again. Typical. As I took him out, he went back. Are you back there, mate, now? Danny, you there?
Can you hear me, chaps?
I can hear you, mate, yeah.
Hello? Yeah.
Yeah, I can hear you now, sorry, yeah.
Yeah, I'm back.
I don't know what you think about that, about the players. Are they being consulted enough about whether they are comfortable playing?
Probably not, to be honest with you. To be honest with you, I think no one's really taking charge of the situation as a whole, are they? I think the domestic kind of bodies, you mentioned you wait for their... I think just because nobody really knows what to do, nobody's really taking charge of the situation. And as you say, one of those kind of things would be to maybe ask the players what they actually think about it as well, because they're the ones that have to go out there and if they want them to go out there and play. And as I said, I'm sure there'll be a fair few players who are desperate to get the season up and running, but there'll be a fair few that are fearful of what's going on and maybe won't want to play as well. So I think first and foremost, probably the first thing would be to ask the players how they actually feel about the situation, and then you kind of go from there. But it just seems that there's not really any kind of leadership with what's going on. I mean, everybody's got an opinion on it, but you're not really hearing anything from the people where you really want to hear the decisions come from, which is a problem at the moment.
Who's in charge then, Dan? Who's in charge of the Premier League? Is it the Premier League or is it Sky Sports?
Well, Sky probably.
Well, that's what I think.
The TV money
is a
massive factor in this as well.
That's what I think. And I think what you've just said there about nobody making a decision and nobody taking control, I don't think anybody knows who's got the final say or out of the two. You know what I mean? Are the two both coming together to make a decision so that it's right for football, it's right for the football clubs, it's right for the players, because Sky are going to make a decision which is right for Sky Sports, and rightly so, because they're a business, and the Premier League's going to do are going to make the decision which is right for Sky Sports. But the problem we've got is the players can also make a decision and talk with their feet and not play, and if the players decide to do that, then it's up to them. Surely Peters is on about us two.
I know,
not about Danny.
She must be talking about me, surely.
You know what I mean? She hasn't been on for a few weeks. It must be this new beard.
Because to be fair, I think even the football clubs, guys, even the football clubs are probably driven more by the money than actually the welfare of the players, because the TV money is so important to these football clubs, and if they're not to get the revenue coming in or the season ends, then you could see football clubs kind of folding. So is money even more important than actually the welfare of the players and the players going back out there and playing? I think that's the problem. This industry now, particularly the Premier League, is driven by money. It's a business. It's a business.
Totally agree. Totally agree.
The thought of 300, 400 million, whatever it is, being lost, clubs kind of losing that money, it could send a few under. So I think that's the despeраcy of a lot of clubs, obviously wanting to see the season out, to more than anything, to pick up that TV revenue, which is scandalous, really.
Well, that's all you're hearing. All you're hearing is furlough this about money, trying to save money, Sky money, getting the games back. They're not thinking of the players. You know what I mean? They're not about the talk. If football does happen, you know what I mean, that there's going to be no fans walking through the turnstiles until 2021. So how are clubs going to make? And I'm not on about Premier League clubs here, because Premier League clubs will make the money by via Sky and via other avenues. But the Championship clubs, the League One clubs, the League Two clubs, the Conference clubs, they're going to have absolutely zero income. You know what I mean? And how are they going to generate budgets for next season? How are they going to be able to sign players? You know what I mean? Then they've got the travelling on top of it. They've got hotels to pay. Home games every other week is where you generate most of your money. And if that's not going to happen, you know what I mean? You look forward to your big games, your derby games, where you can sell at the way end and you can generate a little bit more money. And that's not going to happen. So I just think the bigger picture is not really being thought about. And instead of this money, this £400 million being generated and filtered down to help the smaller clubs and the lesser clubs, and you know what I mean, I really do fear for football and the lesser clubs who aren't like the Salfords who've got good owners, and you know what I mean, the likes of Macclesfield Town, for example, who've struggled notoriously. Bolton Wanderers struggled notoriously over the last couple of seasons. You know what I mean? I just really hope this isn't the end of them.
Yeah, it'd be sad if I said right at the start, I think, at the start of the lockdown, that it would be an absolute travesty if one club goes bust because of this pandemic. You know, there's enough money in football to make sure that no club goes bust. You know, those clubs who are dependent on gates and
there was enough money in football for Bury to go. To save Bury, and they went bust. So for me, it wouldn't be a shock if I seen 4, 5, 6, 7 clubs go now, because if teams let Bury go when football was rife and money was there and everything was happening, then they'll have no qualms at letting it happen now. No way. That's what I believe, because I believe it's a very selfish industry, football. Gabbs just mentioned it there about being a business, and you know what I mean, money talks, and you know what I mean, players are the ones stuck in the middle, and if they're told to play, they play. It's as simple as that, really.
Yeah, just to finish off on this subject, I saw a story, I think it was yesterday, about the fact that a couple of Premier League clubs have basically given the players the option to opt out. If by now, surely that has to be an option for every club, I would have thought. But apparently, according to this story at least, it said that some players, when they found out, you know, that there was boys from other clubs who had been told, you know, if you don't want to play, if you're not comfortable or you don't feel safe or whatever it may be, you don't have to play. When they found out that, you know, another club was offering their mate that, they were quite upset. Now, I don't know about you guys, but obviously I'm not a former professional footballer, but if I had young kids, you know, like yourself, Andy, now, if I had a young baby, and my club wasn't giving me that option, I think I'd be a bit pissed off, to be perfectly frank.
Yeah, I think things do change, and your outlook on life looks so different now when you're a little bit older and you've got kids. When obviously me and Gabbs played, you know what I mean. I had my first daughter when I was in Cardiff, but you know what I mean. But I was still relatively young, but not. You know, when you're young, you just want to play. You just want to go out there and play. You don't think that any injuries don't happen. You don't think of the bigger picture and other things. And that, I just think sometimes we do get lost. We do get lost in the moment at times, and you know what I mean. And I talked to my dad about this the other day, because he said, how about if a team decides they don't want to play? So he said, let's say Liverpool decide they're not going to play for the rest of the season, so they lose 9 games. They could still win the league, and they probably still would win the league, but they don't have to play. And you know what I mean. And if a team in mid-table decides they're not going to play, they could get relegated towards. For me, it's you can't relegate the team for not going to want to play. It's all all in. And if you do a vote and they say 70% of the teams, 70% of the votes, if everyone's got to play, so be it. Because I just think, you know what I mean, if individual players don't want to play, that's a different scenario. But that could be the same before this happened, because there's certain players going into certain games, and they go and see a manager on Friday afternoon and say, listen, Gaffer, I don't fancy playing tomorrow. You know what I mean? I've got things going on and I don't want to play. I don't feel right. You know, that happens anyway. So, you know what I mean? This is no different for me sometimes.
So here's a question, Dan. What happens if the Premier League and the clubs come to an agreement to finish the season? However they work it, whether it's like a tournament, neutral grounds, whatever, they sort it out, and then they they take it to their players, or they go to tell the squads, right, we're getting ready for this. What if all the players from all the clubs get together and say, no, we're not happy with the precautions, we don't think it's safe, we're not comfortable being put out there whilst, the rest of the nation is still in lockdown? What happens then? What happens if the players decide, no, we're all right, thanks?
Well, I think they would probably have to come to the conclusion of, the league would just have to end. If there was enough clubs not wanting to play, then what can you do, really? You can't force the players then to play if they don't want to, if teams don't want to play. And I think that's why there needs to be authority from the top. Someone needs to come out and make a decision that all the clubs have to kind of stand by, because AC will tell you all clubs are different. They all have different rules with within their clubs. Managers have different thoughts on things. So as you say, one club might be saying, okay, you can opt out and not play if you don't want to, but another club might be saying something totally different. So that's why there needs to be that authority from the top, and every team has to conform to whatever's said. So I think if you get that situation where there's enough players or teams that don't want to play, there's nothing else that can happen apart from you'd have to call the league as it is, I think, and say, look, it's whatever it is, null and void, and there's no winner, no one gets relegated or whatever it would be, because you can't obviously continue the league without the players, can you? So it is.
No.
Here's a question for you, Danny. Then, just last question on this aspect of the show: if they void the season and Liverpool do not win the Premier League, will Liverpool ever win the Premier League?
You just don't know, do you? You'd like to think that they would, with the team that they have and the way that they're performing. But the knock-on effect that this could have, doing so well in the league, being miles ahead in the league, you're thinking you're coasting to your first Premier League title, and it gets taken away from you. It obviously could have a big knock-on effect for the following season. We just don't know. It could affect other teams in a positive way as well coming back next season. So, look, I think it'd be difficult. I think the way they kind of come back from the previous season, losing the league by 1 point to Man City, but I think the Champions League win was a massive kind of carrot for them that give them massive motivation going into this season. This could have the opposite effect, obviously, going into next season if they weren't to get that kind of league title in their hands. So that's a really difficult one to answer. But you'd have to think that from a psychological and a mental kind of point of view, it would be difficult to take. If I was a Liverpool player in that dressing room and the league got cancelled and you're expecting that league title to come to Anfield and it gets taken away, then it'd be a difficult kind of few weeks or whatever it is then going into the following season. That would have to mentally kind of scar you a little bit. So I don't know. I really don't
cursed,
know.
Wouldn't you?
You would.
Liverpool, like, just the amount of times come so close and slipped up, if you'll excuse the pun. Sorry, I can't resist it. I can't help myself. I just do it without thinking sometimes. So, all right, let's move away from this for a bit. Let's get on to something different. So, obviously, Andy, you sent me a thing saying Wayne Rooney. Was it an interview in the Daily Mail?
Yeah, Wayne does his own piece in the Daily Mail, and and I don't know if you've seen it, Dan. That he wrote a story about Ravel Morrison, saying that Ravel was the best player to come through Man United at the time he was there. That he said there was training sessions that he'd be. There was one in particular that he megged Emmanuel Vidic 3 times in one training session. He said he was Rolls Royce. He said he was the best thing to come out of that football club, and then obviously went on to say that obviously his lifestyle off the pitch. Obviously had big implications on the success that he's had on the pitch, or lack of success he's had on the pitch, sorry. You know what I mean? He's tried a host of clubs, he's tried a host of managers, and nobody's ever got the best out of him. You know what I mean? I'm currently, obviously, watch a lot of Middlesbrough, and he's currently there on loan, and it's just not working out for the kid whatsoever, you know what I mean? So, you know what I mean? What advice would you give to a young player who's got the world at his feet, so to speak? And obviously, what do you think happened to Ravel, or what's gone wrong?
Well, I think it's a difficult one because there's only so much you can say. The player has to take it on board And you only, as you say, you only have to look at the amount of kind of clubs he's had and stuff. Obviously, you know, there's something not right there. And I've heard that story so many times. You know, how good he was at Manchester United. I've actually had dealings with him when I was at Cardiff City, caretaker manager. Ravel was actually there, and he came to the club. So I saw what he was like a little bit firsthand. And look, as a player, one of the best players I've ever seen. His ability was ridiculous. You know, you can ask any of the Cardiff City lads who were playing at that time. You know, first training session that we put on, and he was just out of this world. You know, his ability. We put on a possession session, I think, and I mean, he didn't give the ball away once. He was nutmegging people, and exactly what Wayne Rooney was kind of saying. And you know, everybody walked off the training ground, kind of blown away. You know, we've got a real good player here, kind of thing. But he's just like your little kid, really. He's had a tough upbringing. I think that's played a big part in his kind of behaviour and how he is as a person. And it's one of them, just trying to get out the best out of him was really difficult. He's just like a little kid. You know, at times, you know, we'd be pulling our ear out with him. We tried to make it as easy as possible for him. Sorry, when he was at Cardiff, I think the owner, he put him in one of the flats at the training ground at the Vale. So he was literally, he could walk the trainer, so he'd never be late. He'd still drive his car into training, even though it was like a 2-minute walk. He still ended up being late. He was just like a different kind of lad. He was very difficult to understand, very shy, very quiet. You know, you could see he was a little bit troubled and stuff.
I think that's my issue though with him and with other players. Obviously, with that on the screen now, it's another trigger point that you can only do so much, though, Gabbs, can't you? You know what I mean? As a manager, as a coach, as an advisor, that football is so different to every other industry that you go to training, say at 9 o'clock, you finish at lunchtime, so you've only got a 3-hour window. He's on his own from 1 o'clock in the afternoon until the next day. You haven't got a clue what he's doing, who he's with, how he's condoning himself, what he's eating, is he looking after himself? And then the cycle starts all over again. All over again. You give a players a couple of days off because you think they've earned it, and you just, you know what I mean, with certain people. I'm not. This isn't slagging him off, by the way, because but it's just certain players and individuals that they just let themselves down, let the group down, because it's other players and the squad who picks the pieces up sometimes, and sometimes it can have an adverse and a negative effect on the rest of the players, the rest of the group, and the season sometimes. And you know what I mean, there's been some excellent managers who've tried and failed with Ravel, and you know what I mean. Currently, you've got another young manager, obviously Jonathan Woodgate's trying to get something out of him, and you know what I mean, there's just something not right. And you know what I mean, like you said, the amount of clubs he's had, and he's been abroad, he's tried to see different things. He has had a tough upbringing from the things I've also read and heard about. But sometimes with that football can be your saviour. And I say for me, you know what I mean, I had an unbelievable upbringing. You know what I mean, parents unbelievable, lived in a lovely house. I was supposed to go to school, never did. But football was my saviour, but in a different way. That I'm not saying it saved me from prison and things, but I didn't have anything else to fall back on. And but for somebody like Ravel, if he's had that kind of tough upbringing and he's got bad influences in and around him, it's such a shame that it hasn't worked out for him, because he's just, for me, he's clinging on. But I just hope someone can get the best out of him before it's too late, because what's next for him, for example? Is it the same as Leon?
Very similar.
Better? Who was the better player, Leon Jean or Ravel Morrison?
That's a very good question. Very good question. Very similar players.
Oh, you'll have seen more of him, Dan, than I did, because I came as his time with football was ending because of his drug test. But what I saw in a short space of time, I couldn't believe what I was witnessing. You know what I mean? Because I'd left Middlesbrough to come to Cardiff, and the kind of youngsters that were working at Middlesbrough at the time, he would have walked straight into the first team. The way that what I was seeing, and I just couldn't believe what. Like the talent and the swagger and the confidence and what the things what he had, you can't teach. And you know what I mean. Obviously, the problems what followed him around were obviously disastrous as an individual. Never mind a footballer, because obviously now it's just a waste of a life.
Yeah. I think just the natural ability of both of them. You know, very very similar players. Just that natural ability which you're just kind of born with, really. And I played with Leon at under 18 level, under 21 level for Wales, and some of the stuff that he could do. At a young age when he was at QPR, he was, everybody wanted him. Every club was after him because he was such a good player. But again, just another one with a tough kind of upbringing. You could tell when he was on the pitch, when he was able to play, that kind of was his escape a bit, and he could showcase what he could do and stuff. But then, away from the game, off the field and stuff, he, for whatever reason, the company he was keeping, Ravel very much the same. When he was at Cardiff, and you had a group of boys around him, probably in his ear saying the wrong things. He's very much kind of led by them. He was very difficult to kind of get to know. He had his certain people who he kind of, associated with, and that was it. And it's just a shame, really. Just waste of such unbelievable kind of talent. Both players. So it's hard to say he was better because they just. Both
but how many times have you said this, and how many times do we keep saying the same thing about players that, like, that it's a waste of talent? And for me, I would have just dreamed to have the natural talent what those kind of players had, because sometimes you take it for granted, and you look further back and look at Gaza. Did Gaza get everything out of his ability that he had? And I'm not thinking linking them the same and comparing them, but Gaza could have done so much more if he looked after himself. I was lucky enough to play with him at Middlesbrough and towards the end of his career, but I seen what he did off the pitch as well as on the pitch, and there's so much time off the pitch, and you've got to look after yourself so much. And if social media was around when Gaza played, for example, it probably would have kept him out of the pub. It probably would have kept him on the straight and narrow, because now you probably can't sneeze without somebody having a stick on.
Spot on. Johnny Wish wants to know, who's the biggest knobhead you've met in football? Don't get asked that question on Talk Sport, do you?
I hope it's one of the ones. I hope it's one of the ones I've mentioned.
Yeah, it'd be quite funny, wouldn't it?
Biggest, wow. I've not had that question before. Not put that not that bluntly anyway.
See, this is the kind of thing that you get things stung on you down on here that you get caught on the hob. This is the best. It's the best ones. It's the best ones, I tell you.
Yeah, don't mess about, you boys on here. Who's the biggest knobhead?
And then the follow up question is why.
Yeah. Well, it can't be as bad as what happened to Kev, can it? When Di Llewellyn asked Kev about something which had happened on a pre-season tour with a fire extinguisher, and Kev was just like,
his face was a picture.
So
his
funny.
face was a picture. Yeah.
He answered did he tell it?
He didn't have a choice, mate. Because he didn't have a choice because people knew the story and were going to come out with it. And he was defending himself.
He admitted it though, didn't he? He did admit it.
He did. He threw a couple under the bus though.
Yeah. Fair play to him.
Yeah, too right. Yeah.
You can do that when you're tired, mate.
Yeah, too right. You can.
That's it. So what else we got?
I'll have to think about that.
We'll circle back to that question. Yeah. James Costley says the biggest knobhead was probably Joey Barton.
That's how we look at it. Danny Mills, told you.
Yeah, you know what? With Joey, he was fine with me. When we used to together at QPR, I never had an issue with him. He was like, there was about 5 or 6 of us. I used to sit next to each other in the changing room and stuff. We all got on quite well, but I also saw what he was like to one or two other players in that QPR dressing room, and he was a nasty piece of work. To be fair, if you got on the wrong side of him, or for whatever reason, if he didn't respect you and stuff, then he could be, he could really be nasty too. So I could say him, but it wouldn't be, because he personally done anything to me. It'd be more from what I've seen him do to other players.
I think that kind of question, though, Danny, it's like tongue in cheek, isn't it? Because it's such a personal question to yourself. Because I could ask you now what you think of a certain manager, but I could think something completely different, because it's a matter of opinion. It's how people treat you individually. You know what I mean? And it's just like the likability factor. You know what I mean? And because. Someone could ask me about Joey Barton. I could have travelled with Joey Barton for a year. You know what I mean? And how can you? It's such an open question sometimes. That, but
there you are. There's a nice easier question, less controversial. Favorite moment during time at West Ham?
Probably that 2005-06 season as a whole, I would say. My first season there, moving from Cardiff. Obviously, West Ham had got promoted back up to the Premier League, and we had a good bunch of lads, young team, all kind of hungry. A lot of players who hadn't performed in the Premier League before. What are you laughing at?
That comment there. Can you not see that comment?
Looks like there's some harsh people on
That's Reece Weston. That's Reece Weston.
That's
Reece Weston.
Yeah. Oh, it is actually. Yeah, bloody hell. He came on, didn't he?
He did. Yeah. He won't be on again.
No, he won't.
Yeah.
Unacceptable. That.
So Gabbs, so you said there about your most favourite time at West Ham. Then, so obviously the question, which for me would probably come before that, is were you ready to make that step up, and do you think that you probably could have made the step up or the move earlier than what you did?
I felt like I was ready, and I think probably the season previous was probably one of my worst seasons for Cardiff, I would say, because for that kind of reason, I was a little bit frustrated. I was letting kind of things get to me a little bit. So I kind of thought that, maybe it was time, to move on, and I wanted to test myself at that level. And I think probably the main reason was because I was playing international football then at that point as well. And, you go away, you're playing with that, better quality player and stuff. You're playing against the best teams in the world and stuff. And and then you come back and you think, well, I want to be playing now at the top level, kind of week in, week out, testing myself against the best players week in, week out. So there was a period where I got frustrated that season because, a move didn't really happen, and I had to kind of get my head back around to things quickly, because if you remember, Cams, we were in a bit of a situation where we were down towards the relegation zone that season as well. The club was struggling a bit with money, and players were starting to leave and things like that. I got given then the captaincy, I think, towards the end of that season. So that kind of got my head straight, really. I remember Lenny Lawrence kind of pulling me in the gym one afternoon and saying, what's the matter with you, kind of thing. He was thinking about dropping me for one of the games because I think he could see that I wasn't right mentally. I wasn't really playing to the best of my ability. And that kind of, like, with one or two other things, kind of kicked me back into action, really. And I realised, I've got to get my head around this and start performing. So I did feel like I was ready.
So that must have been tough then, Gabbs. So it's coming back to Cardiff, obviously from international football. You just said there. So you made 49 appearances. So I no disrespect to you, by the way, what I'm going to say, but so 1 minute you're playing with John Hartson, Craig Bellamy, etc., and then next minute you come back to Cardiff to go and play with Leo and me. You know what I mean? So this is you know what I mean. So
it
wasn't. But you're going away to different countries. You know what I mean? We're going to talk about the game later on. But it was a Tuesday or Wednesday night that you played against Italy at the Millennium Stadium. You beat them 2-1. It was probably one of the most accomplished performances I've seen from you against that's probably an understatement. World class players opposition, because Italy were far above that at the time. And then the next day you walk into training like you just played a Ponton reserve game. That, you know what I mean? The difference between that and that must have been staggering, really.
Yeah, it was strange, to be fair. It's something I had to kind of get my head around because, when I was going away with Wales, I was, it was educational. I was playing with the likes of Hartson, Speed, Bellamy, Giggs, these kind of players, as you say, playing against some of the best players in the world. And then, then you come back to Cardiff, and no disrespect to the teams in that league or the players that I was playing with, but when you get a taste of that, you kind of want more of it. I'd look forward to going away and learning off those players. I was learning stuff that I'd never kind of learned before. Just the fact that I was, mixing with those players. I played with, I think we were in Division 2 at the time.
Yeah.
I almost didn't feel like I belonged there really in that kind of company. So it was great for me just to go and learn off those kind of senior lads. And when I come back, then I'd feel like I'd added another 1 or 2% to my game, confidence wise and ability wise and stuff. So then coming back, in a way, it was good because I felt like I was on another level then with confidence and stuff. But then once you get a taste of that there. You kind of won that all the time as well. So, I had to kind of, get my feet back down on the ground quickly, I suppose.
But then there's another factor in it. So say if you were at West Ham at the time when you played against Italy, for example, then you wouldn't have had to get your feet back on the ground, for example. You just get taken over by the wave because you're Premier League football. It's that kind of level week in, week out, and you know what I mean. No disrespect to the teams in our league, you know what I mean, because the league was a competitive league. Because you know what I mean, we obviously didn't walk away and run away with the league because probably with the way that we should have done. But you know what I mean, when you're playing at an elite level with all kind of players, and you know what I mean, not just getting the odd game here and there. You know what I mean, playing one of for me the first name on that in that defensive place, and you know what I mean. Then to come back to Cardiff and then to have to play on the Saturday, you know what I mean. There's extra added pressure on you. You know what I mean, because you come in there, they're expecting you to keep a clean sheet. The fans are expecting because they've just watched you. Football's expecting, you know what I mean. And for me, and me and Si have had the same conversation that if we hadn't got promoted that season, you know what I mean. For me, not just you, I think there'll have been a host of players who had to leave for their own career. And for me, you would have been the first who would have had to go out the door because you can't stay in that division and then play at the level you were playing at and want to play at. To have an impact on your career. What would you say about
that? I'd say you're spot on. That promotion, as we mentioned, you said that the two games that mean something to me. We'll get onto that later, but that's one of them. And it was a massive game for so many different reasons. And we'd lost the Stoke, I think it was in the playoffs the season before.
Yeah.
And I'd missed that game as well. So I'd had 3 or 4 months where I'd missed in that season as well with a back injury. So I come back towards the back end of that season, and
that's what happens.
The pressure that was...
what happens when you buy a sports car, Dan.
No, that's what happens when you carry in the back for me.
Told you, Spencer Pryor. Spencer Pryor was no good.
So the pressure that was on that season as a whole, because as you said, Cam, we spent a bit of money. We had a good squad. We'd failed the season before. We probably should have been in the automatic maybe places, or we were hoping that we should have been. We scraped into the playoffs, and there was just huge kind of pressure on that game. So, to get that promotion was massive. Because as you say, I think if we didn't, then the squad probably would have got disbanded 100%. A lot kind of quicker than it actually did. Yeah,
100%. And the thing is, though, and I think we all knew that, you know what I mean, that individuals had their own aspirations of what they want to do in their careers, but collectively, you know what I mean, there's no way in the world that football club would have been able to keep hold of the kind of players because, you know what I mean, the expectation, and it's not even worth thinking about what would happen after that game, and you know what I mean, because we all came closer, you know what I mean. We had a conversation about this, that promotions can sometimes have a negative effect, you know what I mean, because personally, you know what I mean, I scored that winning goal, that it probably had a negative effect on my Cardiff career because I didn't play as many times after because they bought Alan Lee and they bought other players in, for example. So people say, do I wish I didn't score that goal? Well, no, because for me it's the highlight of my football career. It meant so much to me, to you, to everybody else because of that one game. And you know what I mean? For me, you live and die by decisions and you live and die by moments in your definitions in your football career. And for me, these are the highlights that you look back on. You know what I mean? If you look back on nothing, then you've got nothing to be proud of. And, you know, and for me, these kind of moments don't happen often enough in football. So when you do get them, and you snap your hands off, you know.
So just while there's a little lull in the conversation, but I just want to jump in. There's people have sent in a load of questions. I'm going to get to them in a minute. But I just wanted to take this opportunity to announce that next Monday, live on the Andy Campbell Show, we will be joined by Cardiff City Chief Executive Mehmet Dalman, who's going to be answering questions from the live chat, as well as discussing the Emiliano Sala tragedy, including the book and his interview, which is in the new extended book, which is going to be a really interesting show. Obviously, last week we had a lot of people watching and asking author and journalist Harry Harris a lot of questions last week. And so it'll be really interesting to have Mr. Dalman on. And obviously, he will know the ins and outs of the story, the transfer, and obviously everything which is going on. So, yeah, next week, 7:30. Andy Campbell
You
show.
pull some weight, boys. You pull some weight.
We're doing all right at the minute. Yeah. Well, to be fair,
Did he ask you? Did he ask you?
We didn't. We
didn't. Comment.
We didn't directly ask him. Let's put it that way. But this is a huge thing for the show. This is and for me, I think there's a lot of things that Cardiff City fans are obviously wanting to ask. There's obviously a bigger picture involved, obviously with what happened to Emiliano, etc., and certain things that obviously we've been talking about the book. We've done 2 shows on the book now, and then Sai's done
3.
Well, you've done an individual one, and I've done 2. And to be fair, it's a sad story, but a really good story. You know what I mean? Let's put that in place first. But start with you, Dan. You know what I mean? Having you on the shows. This was the big one. You know what I mean? We've obviously got other players coming on. Sorry, I forgot about Reese there. Sorry, Reese, if you're watching. Get me on back.
Jeff Winter.
Yeah, we've had some. It's getting bigger, getting bigger and getting better. I was just a rubbish referee. I know you won't be. I know you might be Russian. So. But no, this is huge.
Well.
Oh yeah, sorry, I keep forgetting all these people now.
Yeah, and that's not even including all the ones who've come on individual shows as well. Getting there slowly, but yeah, Mehmet Dalman. There's a few swear words in the comments which I'm not going to put up on screen, but people seem quite surprised. I told you it was going to surprise you, and yeah, so it'll be very, very, very interesting. But we'll come back to that maybe towards the end of the show. I got to get through some of these questions for Danny because there's lots. Okay, so. Johnny's asked that same question again. He desperately wants to know who you think was the biggest knobhead you've ever met in football. But okay,
Reece Weston after that comment.
Oh, I know. He obviously thought I'd shave my head. He fell for it, hook, line, and sinker. Okay, Johnny West did ask: would you have rathered stay at City and go up and get to the Premier League? Or were you ready for a change of scenery and a different club?
Oh, that's a good question. Look, I would have loved. That was the plan. When I signed for Cardiff City, I think I was 21. That was the plan. That was the dream. That kind of Simon Man sold me and a lot of players that came to the club at that time. The plan was to keep getting promotions and get Cardiff City to the Premier League, and that is my one regret, not being able to do that, leaving the club and not being able to fully kind of achieve that goal. Look, I think the 2 promotions were great. Had some fantastic times there. And look, I would have loved to have gone that one final hurdle and get Cardiff City into the Premier League. I did feel like I was ready to move, but I didn't actually think that I was going to move. I think the main reason I probably did go was because the club had to sell players. There were players leaving left, right, and centre. James Collins had just come into the team that season and done well. And I think West Ham, we played them twice that season. I think we both played quite well against them. And I think they probably thought we can get them at a decent price for what's going on at the club at that time. And that's exactly what happened. So that was the main reason why we ended up leaving, really. I probably... still would have been there otherwise next season, having a crack at promotion to the Premier League. So it was out of my hands a little bit, to be honest with you.
Did you believe? Oh, go on. Sorry, Si. Did you believe, Dan, what Sam and Man was saying to you? So you said about obviously the dream. You know what I mean? Because obviously Sam gave that the same dream to me. You know what I mean? But sometimes when you hear those kind of things, when you're a League Two club, it's a little bit like, is he for real? You know what I mean? But like. Did you really believe that the club could achieve? Because obviously you were in a lesser division of at the time when you signed. So did you believe his dream?
Yeah, I think I did. I think you take it with a pinch of salt a little bit because you know what Sam's like. He's a little bit over the top and he says a lot of crazy things. But I think once I got to the club and the amount of money that was being spent, the players that were coming in, the vision he kind of had, it wasn't just signing anyone. It was, he wanted to bring Welsh players into the club as well. He was talking about wanting to help the national team and things like that, which, he did to that a certain extent with that. So, I mean, once I got to the club and the things that he was doing, the money that he was spending on players, the ruthless nature he had as well with managers, Bobby, Billy here was there, I think, when I came on loan. He didn't last too long. Bobby Gould came in. He didn't like what he saw there. He didn't last too long. Alan Court was in. So, we'd had 3 managers within that kind of first season, I think. So the way he kind of acted and, the ruthless kind of nature he showed at times did make me believe to a certain extent that, that's what he really wanted. He did put his money where his mouth was, to be fair.
Well, I'm similar, mate, for me, because I remember when he told me, and I hadn't really met all the players. I knew a couple, you know what I mean. But obviously, when I went to training and I saw the quality of the lads in training, and I seen the squad as a whole when I first got there, I was like, oh wow, you know what I mean. This is basically a League One side, you know what I mean. But this is a championship. This is a playoff fighting championship team squad playing in League One. It was such a, you know what I mean, a refreshing change to the expectation, you know what I mean? Because I know. Obviously, the money talks, and people see the amount of money that Cardiff City spent, but you know what I mean. There was a lot more quality behind the door, you know what I mean, underneath, and the amount of Welsh players, you know what I mean, the stalwarts, so to speak, and the younger players coming through, and you know what I mean. There was so much quality, and once I'd gone to training for the first time, I realised that this club can go places, and it doesn't surprise me one little bit where they are. Well, where they were and where they're going to go back to, you know what I mean? Because they're obviously a huge football club with a huge fan base.
Yeah.
Well, going back on your move, Dan. So when you talk about you and James Collins going to West Ham, which one was the buy? Which one was the buy one get one free? Which one was that one?
Who was the more expensive?
I know that Ginge was the get one free. It's all right, mate. Don't worry about it.
Of course, mate. Of course. Well, actually, what happened was I think we went for a combined fee of 3 million.
You were 2.9999999, and it was a pound.
But at the time, I think when the transfer happened, they had said that James was the one that went for 2 million, and I went for 1 million. But basically, I had like a sell-on fee in my contract from West Brom when I went from West Brom to Cardiff.
Right.
So I think that's why they kind of said that, so Cardiff wouldn't have had to pay the sell-on.
Don't have to make him feel better. Don't make him feel better.
Yeah,
we know the truth. We know the truth, Dan.
We know the truth, mate.
We know the truth.
What a bargain for West Ham. What a bargain.
Yeah, it was.
3 million
that's
for that pair.
Ridiculous, isn't it? Ridiculous.
Craziness.
Craziness.
James Costley wants to know your favourite Cardiff City moment.
I've got to say the promotions, me and obviously that Leeds United giant killing in the FA Cup. That performance was right up there with one of the. I don't
think though that gets as much recognition as it probably should. You know what I mean? I watched that game because obviously I'd spoke to Corky about coming on the Wednesday before that game, and I was supposed to come down, but because of the loan wasn't done in time, I wasn't allowed to go down, and then. You know what I mean? I don't think that game got enough credit. The performance, you know what I mean? Because Leeds weren't any mugs, by the way. They were Champions League. They were going for titles. They were what Liverpool are now. You know what I mean? Yeah. So and the way that the players they had, and it just didn't get enough credit because it was a solid performance. You know what I mean? To come from behind as well to beat one of the best sides in the world at the time was some going. You know, it wasn't just a.
You know what?
Wasn't just a one-off.
We fancied it before the game. We weren't fearful at all. We respected them, as you say, Cams, because the players that they had.
Yeah.
They had some world class players in their side. From back to front. But we didn't fear them. We knew the crowd would be behind us. We knew the crowd would be hostile. We knew that would be something that they probably never experienced before. And it was an incredible atmosphere, to be fair. And once you go one down, you're thinking, oh, here we go.
How many?
This could end up 3 or 4 now. How many?
Yeah.
But then obviously, I think Rio Ferdinand got injured and went off.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
I think they're the man sent off. Was it Alan Smith? Maybe I think got sent off.
Yeah.
And then you start kind of believing, I suppose. But we were never fearful before the game. We fancied it. We knew what we had in our team, and as I said, we knew with the home draw and the crowd behind us, we knew, we could cause them 1 or 2 problems. So, and that's what happened.
But it's a one-off opportunity, the FA Cup, and people. people degrade the FA Cup. You know what I mean? You just said that it's one of your highlights of your Cardiff career. You know what I mean? And people degrade the FA Cup by not putting strong sides out. You know what I mean? Leeds didn't degrade it that day. They put the strongest possible side out they could. You know what I mean? In Cardiff, the atmosphere, the TV cameras, the whole atmosphere. Coming up to the game, after the game, and you know what I mean. For me, teams should look at that in the FA Cup, and it just shows how important it is to people, because it played a huge part in my career. The FA Cup, loved it, watching it as a young boy, the FA Cup final, the whole day, and you know what I mean. The FA Cup's been quite kind to me throughout my career, and I wouldn't change it for the world. And I hate how people degrade it at the minute. But
no, it's I think, as you say, I think as a player from the lower leagues, you know, an FA Cup tie coming up against a team in a higher division, it's a chance for you to, pull off a shock or, test yourself against better players and stuff. You can't wait for those kind of ties to come around. And back then, that didn't happen so much, did it? Where bigger teams would kind of neglect the competition. But now, as I said earlier, football is a money. Oh, what's going on there, Si? He's just taking his.
He's just proving he's got a wig.
I know. He's just.
He's just showing off.
It's driven by money now. The Premier League rules over everything. So all these bigger clubs now, even down Championship, even League One teams now are
wrestling players.
It's crazy.
Yeah. So how did you feel then when you seen their team sheets? Obviously, what was it? Mark Viduka scored, so obviously he played up top. Was it Robbie Fowler, Alan Smith?
Yeah, it was. I think there was Fowler, Viduka,
Smith, Harry Kuehl,
I think Bowyer. I think Woodgate played.
Yeah, Woody did play. Yeah, Ferdinand Woodgate with the two. Dominic Matthew, I think, played on the left hand side. Ian Hart. Yeah. It's not an average side, is it? You know what I mean?
No,
there's no change, no change given there, like whatsoever.
No.
Steve
it was
McPhail on the bench.
McPhail on the bench. I mean, it was a top quality team at that point. They were probably the best team in the Premier League at that point. If not the first then second. So you see the team sheet, and obviously your bumhole's twitching a little bit. You're a little bit nervous because you don't want to get embarrassed. I think I played right back that day. I think Youngie and Spencer played at centre half, and I played right back. So you're thinking, I'm pushed out wide. You're wondering who's going to be playing on our left side. You hope you don't want to get embarrassed by whoever you're playing against them. I think if you look at the team sheet too much, then it can affect your performance. So, as I said, we were very kind of respectful of who we were coming up against. We knew they were good players, but we were excited to kind of get at them as well. And we knew if we could, play with that kind of intensity, get the crowd behind us and stuff, then we knew that we could make them experience something that they weren't used to experiencing, week in, week out.
I think the good thing about back then is any player who played for Leeds, on about the bench and stuff, any player who played that day was going to be a good player. When nowadays you might get a couple of youngsters or a couple of squad players thrown in, but back then the squads were ridiculous and so strong and they had strength in abundance for probably 2 or 3 places for positions, and it was a ridiculous squad. And for me, it was a bigger achievement than what I give credit for. And and I don't think it's being. I don't think sometimes it's given as much credit because of probably the following season and the Millennium Stadium.
Was that the last time that Sam walked around the pitch as well?
Yeah, that was the last time he was allowed. Yeah, that was the last time he was allowed. Yeah, because that was
inciting violence, wasn't it?
That was Corky's. That was Corky's last. That was Corky's last win, wasn't it? Because Corky, I spot to Corky, and then you played Wigan. You played Wigan the following week away, and you got beat 4-0, and you got sacked on the bus on the way home. And then Lenny took over.
Right. Yeah. You know what? I used to hate playing Wigan. I used to hate playing against Wigan. They were my most hated team. I think it was Ellington and Roberts up
the
front.
Duke. Yeah, the Duke. But the thing is, that probably gets used to not playing in front of any fans, because that was one of the stadiums that just looked empty all the time. There was no atmosphere, but they always had a good side. And Lee McCulloch, they had a really good side.
Jason DeVos.
Had a good side, didn't they?
They were decent, good team.
Good side.
Tim wants to know, Gabbs, who was the best centre-back partner you played with and why?
Oh, I have to be careful here, or else I don't know who's listening. Youngie might be listening. So there's been a few, to be fair. James Collins, I'd have to say. I probably didn't play enough with him. That season he broke into the team. I enjoyed playing with him, and then obviously we moved to West Ham. We didn't play together that much at West Ham. Because I got injured and he'd come in, or if he was playing, I wasn't playing, and vice versa. Youngie, I love playing with Youngie, to be fair. because I think the things that I couldn't do, he could do, and vice versa. So we kind of complemented each other really well.
So basically, what you're saying there is that you could run, he couldn't run. Is that what we're saying here?
Yeah. That's why, just trying to be nice.
That's why he rides a bike now. See?
Yeah, his back's in worse shape than mine, I think. So,
that'd have been a good competition. See who had the worst back.
It would have. So I enjoyed playing with him as well. Anton Ferdinand was a good player as well.
Who would you have loved to play alongside?
What, centre half?
Yeah.
At the minute, currently, I'd probably say Van Dijk.
What about in your career then as well? Like, so I think I might have a little bit of a guess. Like, but who would you love to play with? Not currently, so in the past.
Oh, a past player. A centre back. You know what? Probably one of my most favourite defenders is Paolo Maldini. I don't know if you
Rolls Royce.
I would say that, but
Rolls
that
Royce
guy was just ridiculous. I mean, whether it was left back or centre back,
yeah.
He was just so consistent, and I remember.
And he was a good looking man as well, wasn't he?
Yeah, good looking.
Had a lot, didn't he?
Good looking. Yeah, he had a lot. To be fair, I just think his kind of longevity and his consistency for, I don't know when he finished playing, but
he was about 40 odd.
I think it was 40, wasn't he? Yeah, he was 40. Yeah.
But you just never see him have a bad game. I just remember I remember going away with Wales as a probably, I don't know, around that time, not long before that Italy game, and Eddie, who was coach under Mark Hughes at the time, he had a laptop and it just had videos of thousands and thousands and thousands of players on it. And he used to sometimes he would just call you into his hotel room, and he'd say, "Have a look at this," and he'd stick a player on his laptop, but it'd be a camera following just the individual player for that whole game. So it wouldn't be you watching the game; it'd just be you watching the player individually. And I remember he pulled me into his hotel room one evening, and he showed me a video of Paolo Maldini playing, and it was just educational, unbelievable player. So I probably have to say him. I'd probably say him.
Great shout.
Probably change my mind though when I get off this conversation. And say, damn, I should have said him.
So Richie wants to know, who was the joker of the squad when you played with Cardiff and Wales?
The joker. Who would you say? Cams, who would you say, mate?
Cardiff, I'd say Ernie. Yeah, that I think when you're down and you need somebody to get you up, and if it wasn't for the younger players, and I'd put you in that aspect, and Ginge and especially Ernie, that I think it got the whole group together, and we had a really good a link of experience and youth, and a bit of banter and some seriousness. And I think if it wasn't for Ernie and you, I think bus journeys would have been horrific. And so every trip was about a 3-day camera ride, so it was it would have been a nightmare.
Oh mate, some of those card schools on the
oh mate.
I'm just thinking, we were speaking about this the other day with Reece, actually. Those away trips were the things we used to do. We used to train at Ninian Park, because most of the time we didn't have a training ground. A lot of time we trained at Ninian Park, so the bus would go to Newport and pick people up from Newport. Yeah. So we train, go from the training ground, go to TGI Fridays, pick up the takeaway,
pick up some food, come back.
Yeah, pick up food, then go to the Tesco just next to the TGI Fridays, and then just buy all kinds of nonsense. We'd end up coming on the bus with a bag full of chocolate, Mr. Kipling cakes, the lot. And we just get on the back seat and just annihilate the lot. And I just think, footballers now, that'd be so kind of frowned upon now.
I know.
Sports scientists and stuff.
I know. And then you've got the alcohol after games and stuff, and you've got, you know what I mean? It's just so different.
Some of those card schools as well.
Ridiculous. I'm glad if that was Man City nowadays, to be
Ernie,
the
luckiest card player ever.
Not me or Ginge. Me and Ginge used to get stung.
We'd play pontoon, and Ernie would he was just crazy. He was crazy. So one of the lads, you'd look at your cards and you would go open. You'd say 100 open. Ernie would just go 50 blind still again. even though you've looked, your cards have opened up, he would just like stay blind and go another 50. And you're like, what are you doing? And then he'd end up winning. He'd end up winning the hand as well. He's the luckiest cards player I've ever seen. So there was some tasty card schools on there myself. Vidmar, remember Tony Vidmar?
Yeah, Tony Vid,
He used to get involved. Willie Boland.
Top job. Willie
Boland
Boland.
as well.
Cav played a few times.
Cav, yeah. So, good times.
Good times,
good times.
Indeed. Daniel Joseph wants to know, any coaching from you, Dan?
Not at the moment, no. I got 2 of my badges done towards the end of my playing career. So when I moved to Crystal Palace, I did my B license. And I think I completed the A by the time I'd left Palace and kind of when I went back to Cardiff. But I haven't done any coaching really. I came out of the game and I don't know. I got the badges, but I don't really know if I'm cut out for being a coach or manager. I don't know. I think you got to have that certain personality and kind of drive to want to do it. And when I finished playing, I didn't really want to go straight into the coaching and the management side and find myself, maybe having to move and stuff like that and end up in a different part of the country and do something similar to what I've been doing as a player for the last few seasons. I kind of just wanted to settle somewhere and live a bit of a normal life for a little bit. And just kind of circumstances dictated really that I couldn't really go down that route as well, because I kind of moved house. My girlfriend was pregnant as well. She moved down to where I am now and stuff. And I couldn't really have gone into that kind of side of things straight away. So I kind of went down the media side of things and kind of got into that and quite like doing that. So that's kind of what I've been doing really to this point. And, there have been one or two moments where I'm getting a bit of itchy feet and thinking maybe I should make use of the badges and stuff. But at this moment in time, I'm not thinking about kind of going into it at the minute. I just feel you've got to have that, be that certain breed of person. And I'm not sure if I have that kind of personality. And, I look at how difficult it is to get into that coaching side of things and management side of things as well. And, the longevity in it, there isn't any really. It's a bit scary actually as well.
How did you find then your experience at Cardiff, being obviously caretaker manager with Youngie? How did you find it? And obviously has that not then put you into good stead to give it another go somewhere else?
Yeah, it was good and bad really. It was a real eye opener as to the other side of things. I think Cams as a player, you come in, everything's kind of done for you. You don't really think about too much, do you, apart from just getting your training done and then playing on a weekend. But to see the other side, like the detail that goes into even just planning like a training session, the man management side of things, players knocking on your door, you are not happy. Just the whole planning of a week, really, even a day, trying to figure out, players are injured, getting your numbers for training, watching games, studying the opposition. It was properly mentally draining. Because I planned to like kind of keep training and while I was caretaker manager as well, but I don't think I didn't train once, didn't do one session because it was just so kind of mentally taxing and stuff. But the enjoyment now you kind of got though when you standing on the touchline on a Saturday where you've done all your work and then you saw it kind of come to fruition and stuff, and the players kind of acting out what you wanted and maybe getting 3 points and again, it's kind of a great feeling. But some of the other side as well, dealing with the owner and stuff and dealing with players and things like that. That was quite tough as well. So it has kind of held me in good stead.
Well, I think that was one thing I was going to ask you. You know what I mean? Obviously, as a player, when you win a game, you obviously you're pleased, you're happy. But I think as a manager, it's more than a win, because you know what I mean. You've realised that everything you've done through that week, through that month, through that all the planning, all the preparation. You know what I mean. That it's more than just one decision. It's more than just a part you played. You've done the whole thing. So you know what I mean. Results. You know what I mean. You can't take it for granted because you've got another game a couple of days later. But I think as a manager, you know what I mean, you thrive off victories, and obviously, but then at the flip side, you take defeats even harder than you do as a player. As a player, as long as you can look yourself in the mirror after a game and know that you've given your all and you've played your best and you've had a good game, you know what I mean? Sometimes that's enough. But as a manager, every game, every defeat, you take it probably harder than probably you should do, really, because it's basically your fault.
Yeah, the emotions that you go through in those 90 minutes is just crazy because you're so used to playing and being able to affect the game in that respect. You know, you're standing on the touchline and there's nothing you can really do about it. You can bark a few instructions or you're looking at things tactically. You can try and change things that way, but you can't physically get on the pitch and do anything. So kind of the emotions that you go through for those 90 minutes are just crazy. And I can remember even like a couple of, I think it was probably only a few hours into getting told I was caretaker manager, and we'd gone out for a training session. And after the training session, I think it was Sean Morrison. No, actually, I'll tell you what it was. I think it was after our first game, and we'd gone back training. Well, it must have been on the Monday or whatever. And Sean Morrison's pulled myself and was asking why he didn't play on the weekend. And I was like, you're stuttering kind of thing. Like, he just pulled me kind of. I was a bit kind of taken aback, but I didn't really expect it.
Yeah.
And he was obviously not happy, why, because he didn't play on the weekend. So I'm trying to tell him why and stuff. And it was lucky, really. The kind of Youngie came over at that point as well. And that's why it was great kind of having him alongside me as well. Someone who, obviously I had confidence in, who I knew and stuff, and we could kind of go through things, the good times and the bad stuff together, really. So, just dealing with stuff like that. And, there's a lot of stuff I could kind of tell you in those 5 or 6 games that happened, which, you just you wouldn't believe. But,
do tell.
But it was. We ain't got enough time, I don't think.
Yeah. So as a manager, then, Dan, could you manage Danny? Could you manage Youngie?
If as a manager, would I be able to manage Youngie as what, him as a player? You mean?
Yeah, and yourself as well. So would you have enjoyed managing yourself and Youngie as players?
I probably managing myself. I probably would have got a bit frustrated with myself.
Why?
Because I because at times I think with regards to like training and things like that, I could get frustrated quite quickly. I think if I didn't like the session or I could be a bit of a sulker. And that's one of the things I noticed when I got on the other side of things as a coach manager. I thought, now I know how difficult it is to put on a session and keep a group of players kind of happy. So I really respected what coaches did a lot more being put into that situation. So I could be that way a little bit. I could be a bit of a sulker and stuff. I can remember, Willie Boland telling me off a few times in training and stuff because he was the complete opposite. He trained how he played and stuff. Yeah. But Youngie, I don't think Youngie would be any problems, to be fair. He's so kind of laid back and, you're going to get when he's out on the pitch as well. He was a warrior. So he's the kind of player I'd enjoy managing, I think.
Spot on.
Indeed.
Spot on.
Okay, last couple of questions then before we go into those 2 games to finish. Who was your toughest opponent, both of you? Go on, and you go first.
Yeah, you go first, mate.
My toughest opponent, I'd probably say Yap Stam or Sol Campbell. You know what I mean? I played against them both a couple of times at Middlesbrough, and he just didn't get any change off any. He was just both man mountains, both could defend, both solid as a rock, and just both in good sides as well. And it was tough games. You know what I mean? If you did get an opportunity, you had to make sure you take it. That's for sure.
What about you, Dan?
For me, I'd probably say Luis Suarez. Or
good one.
There's a few that probably that season when I moved into the Premier League, there were so many strikers about in that season. It was every week you were playing against different types with different qualities and stuff. But Suarez was difficult. Rooney at that point was at the top of his game. Torres at Liverpool when he was, in top gear, he was unbelievable as well. And probably Henry. Thierry Henry was probably the one player that I feared coming into the Premier League. I was excited about playing against lots of different strikers, but he was the one striker who I thought, I could struggle against this guy. There wasn't really anybody else that I, worried about. I respected, but didn't fear too much. But he was one who I thought, even if I I'm at the top of my game, he could still kind of make me look stupid, really. So I'll probably say him or Luis Suarez, I think.
Great shout.
It's not a bad shout at all, is it? Richie Thomas says, who would be your footballing icon before and during your career?
Before and during.
Oh, before and during. Oh, that's a good one, isn't it? Go on, Dan.
I'll probably say John Barnes for me.
What a shout.
As a youngster, kind of growing up, the reason I kind of support Liverpool is because basically they were the first kind of team that I saw play football on the TV, watching on the TV, and obviously he was playing at that time, and I just kind of took an instant kind of liking to him. Really, he was someone that I enjoyed watching play, and that's kind of why I ended up kind of being a Liverpool fan, really, and kind of back at that time as well when I was that age, younger age. I kind of played more in those positions as well. I didn't play so much as a defender. I used to play as a winger and stuff. So obviously that's where he used to play on that left side and stuff as well. And obviously the end of his career that he moved into central midfield. But he's probably the one. And I was heavily influenced by my older brother as well. Kind of getting into football and stuff. I looked up to him, and he's probably the main reason why I started playing football. But after him. John Barnes is one of the players that I kind of looked up to as a youngster. Yeah.
Cool. What about you, Ant?
I'm Bernie Slaven. You know what I mean? Bernie was my hero at Middlesbrough, and I idolised everything Bernie did. And you know what I mean? Obviously, I managed to meet him. I managed to I want to meet one of my good mates now. You know what I mean? I work with him on a match day sometimes at Middlesbrough, and I just, you know what I mean, to meet your hero and be able to be close to your hero is just something like it's just dreams are made of. And every time I go to the game with my old man like is mingling with all of his heroes. You know what I mean? It's just a normal day for me. But you forget sometimes that the kind of impact that footballers have on other people and normal people who've never been in and around this the football environment. And you know what I mean? My dad's like sometimes just sat there with his mouth open. I was having a normal conversation about just a chit chat, you know. So it's just So Bernie was my absolute hero and idol, and I'd probably start outside of Middlesbrough. I'd probably say Gary Lineker, because I was a big England fan. You know, I still are an England fan, and you know what I mean. Obviously, the World Cups '86, '90. You know what I mean. Before I really got into football, while I was still at school and stuff, and those two World Cups in particular, that obviously he had a big impact on both, and I'd say him.
Not bad shouts at all. Indeed. Okay. So before in this week, we asked Danny to pick two games that had affected him in his life, whether he played in them or just something he'd watched. He had full reign to pick two games. And what did you pick and why, Danny?
This was quite difficult, to be fair, guys, because there was a couple of other games. I thought about my debut for West Brom as a professional, my first team debut. But I wasn't sure you'd maybe be able to get the highlights of that game as well. See the game, so I thought maybe I shouldn't pick that one. So there was a couple of other games which I still hold dear to my heart now. But the two I've gone with, I think the playoff final victory, Cardiff City against QPR. 2003 was it?
Yeah, 2003, 2004, wasn't it?
Yeah, and Wales, Italy, like 2000. I should know this 2002. Obviously, when we beat them at the Millennium 2-1. Those are the two games that I've gone for. Really, I couldn't really go away from those two, I think.
Good stuff. What are your memories, Andy? Apart from the obviously your goal, what are your memories of that QPR game?
Well, mine are a little bit different because obviously I'd had an operation a couple of weeks, about 5 weeks before, so I was touch and go if I was going to play up to the game, and so I was just thankful that I was fit, thankful that I was involved, and then obviously the importance of the game. You know what I mean? I knew the importance of the game, but I also knew I wasn't going to play. Because obviously Ernie had an unbelievable season, scored goals left, right and centre, and deserved to play alongside obviously Thorny. But obviously I took people's place who played the last five or so weeks of the season, and you know what I mean. Once I realised I was going to be sub and I was involved after speaking to Lenny, it was, you know what I mean. I realised that I had a part to play. I didn't know how much of a part, and as big as obviously part as I did. That, you know what I mean. It was just an occasion that you don't want to give up, because these spoke about it before, that these kind of games and times in your life, they don't come around as often as you want. So, you know what I mean, you don't want to give them up, and you know what I mean, if there's an opportunity to grasp and grab hold of, and a memory that you want to keep and cherish for the rest of your life, that you've got to grab hold of it. And you know, my advice to anybody who gets any kind of chance in football or in life, you know what I mean, these kind of opportunities, just take it with both hands, because you know what I mean, these memories stay with you forever, and people don't forget these kind of things.
Shocked. Gethin there. Obviously, you sent Gethin a message as you scored your goal. Yeah.
Well, I remember. Obviously, I shared a room with Geth. Obviously, the night before the game, and obviously Geth was told he wasn't sub, and it was heartbreaking for him. And I remember he shed a tear, and obviously he wasn't happy and very upset. And of course you would. I know how I would feel. You know, I've been there at Middlesbrough when Middlesbrough went to Wembley, and I was 17th man, and I was heartbroken. And you know what I mean. And I always said to myself that I want to play at Wembley. I want to make a difference in my career and do something and play on the biggest stage. And but one thing he did ask me to do, he asked me to celebrate if I scored or after the game. And you know what? When someone asks you to do that, it's the least you can do. And I think it was probably the last thing in my mind when I did score. But you know what I mean. But I remembered, you know what I mean. And when I seen him, because he was sat with my mum and dad, that when I scored, I went straight over to the corner where he was sat with my parents and with my family and friends. And you know, when I did it, and it's now quite a famous celebration in Cardiff, that it was just something that lovely to give back, and something that he can cherish, but also that we can. I've given back to him as well. So it's just amazing, really.
And you met Reece Weston down there because he was already celebrating down in the corner.
Well, Reece came. Gabbs will agree with me. He went off with cramp, and that's the quickest he's ran all season down to celebrate. You know what I mean? So I've never seen him run so quick in my life after that goal, and he went off with cramp. Fucking unbelievable.
Shocking.
Unbelievable.
I got to say that QPR Cardiff game, as a Cardiff City fan, was one of the best nights of my life. It's right
great.
up there with the birth of my kids and my wedding. Like I was outside the City Arms till about 4 a.m. just singing and just hugging strangers, basically.
I think though, Si, as well. I don't know if I don't know. Obviously, that Dan wants to say, but like personally, I was looking at the clock, thinking, you know what I mean, we've got 6 minutes to go. You know what I mean. So where am I going to put my penalty? You know what I mean? Because that was the only thought in my head was, we can't lose this. You know what I mean? There was it didn't
so much pressure.
You know what I mean? It didn't matter how you won it. You know what I mean, or which way you won it. But it was a case of not losing the game. And I was thinking penalties. I was thinking, where am I gonna put my penalty? You know what I mean? So that's all I could think about. You know what I mean? And when the ball came over the top and the goal went in, you know what I mean? I can't really remember much about the last 5 minutes of the game after that, because you know what I mean? I don't think I was that busy, because the ball just kept flinging into the box. I know you lots were throwing your bodies and throwing. You know what I mean? And I was playing up front on my own a little bit for the last 3-4 minutes, but. All I could think about was penalties, and you know, I mean, nothing else was going through my mind.
But Cam, do you know why that goal is as good as it is? Because you actually hit the volley on the up.
Yeah, I know.
I know you've seen it like 100 times. Normally, when you hit a volley, you're hitting it when the ball's actually coming down.
Yeah.
But you've got a bouncing ball. You've got a bear chasing you from behind, Danny Shittu.
So right. Making noises as well, by the way.
Making grunting noises. And honestly, he was a scary guy.
He was, yeah.
And you've got to hit the ball on the up, which is that's what makes it such a fantastic finish for me.
Yeah.
Because as a striker normally, or any player, when you're hitting a ball like that, normally the ball's actually coming down, and the actual technique is a lot easier. But to hit that on the up under pressure, you know, having to lob the keeper as well, just an unbelievable goal, mate.
Yeah, I was just the moment, and you. Yeah, it was, mate. At the moment, and you know, I mean, people have asked about the celebrations and things, and I remember the celebrations on the pitch were just surreal, amazing. But I remember how at times how subdued being in the changing room was, because I think you know, I mean, everyone was so drained and so, you know what I mean, and just so like, thank God that's finished, and then you look forward, don't you, because You know what I mean? Yes, you want to celebrate, but at the same time, it's been 120 minutes for the majority of you. You know what I mean? It's been mentally and physically draining because it's Cardiff in Cardiff, and the whole day's just wiped you out. And then you've got to put like another face on because you've got to go meet your family, your friends, and then the whole day and everything else is on top of it. And it's just it was such a surreal, probably few days leading up to it, few days after. You know what I mean? Me and Si spoke about it as well. I remember, what was that? That was a Sunday, wasn't it? And we were back in training for a meeting on a Tuesday, I think it was, because a lot of people got released on the Tuesday. Some players who didn't have a contract and things in it. And for me, that's what I realised then, that how cutthroat football was, because I think it was the likes of Mark Bonner, Des Hamilton, etc., who obviously they were hoping to get a contract, and because we got promoted, that had an adverse effect on them staying at Cardiff City, and had to then go and look for a different club and things. And it just made me realise that the best moment of your career so far has then had a negative effect on somebody else's Cardiff City career, so to speak. So, you know what I mean? Made me realise how lucky I was at that time. So yeah,
it's
good
crazy
time.
with football. How quickly
ups and downs. Ups and downs.
Ups and downs, and bit of success, then suddenly it's right. That's gone. We got to move on now. We're planning now for the next stage kind of thing. But that it was just pressure. That season, all that season was pressure.
Yeah.
And that was a unique occasion, really, because as you say, the FA Cup finals and the playoff games were being played at the Millennium Stadium. So it was just more added pressure, really, on us, I think, as a team, because it felt like it was a home game. You just felt like, you can't lose that game. And it was the worst game of football ever.
Oh yeah, well, I think the whole of the playoffs. You look at the playoff games. Playoff games are riddled with goals, incidents. You've got the first game against Bristol City, 1-0, not a great game. Really good goal by Thorny, great header. The second game, a bore fest. You know what I mean? Bore fest for everybody, and the finals are bore fest as well. So you know what I mean. But 3 clean sheets in 3 playoff games is a massive achievement for the club, for the defensive unit, for the goalkeeper, for yourself, and you know what I mean. Something which. You know what I mean? Because we didn't go into the playoffs full of confidence, by the way, because we had a bit of a bad run. So you know what I mean. So to pick it up in the playoffs was a huge thing. But I think that's the importance and the pressure brought up another level of performance by especially by the defence. You know what I mean? Because it was I
think you've got to say as well, AC, credit to Lenny Lance as well for throwing you on.
Yeah, well, too right, because it was a big decision.
Had a magnificent season that season.
Big call.
He scored plenty of goals.
Big call.
If you're looking for a goal, maybe you're thinking, well, do I keep him on? But to be fair, Danny Shitty had wrapped him up. He played him ever so well that day, and he didn't really get a sniff. So I think you've got to give credit to Lenny as well, bringing yourself on. But
you look at the game down. You look at the QPR game down there. We played him about a month previous, beating 4-0. And he scored a hat trick. Could have had 4, 5, 6. Ran them all over the place. They didn't know what day it was. Yeah. So you know what I mean. But I believe if and I've spoken to Lenny obviously about this, that was the biggest probably decision of his football career. If that hadn't worked out the way that he wanted, he probably wouldn't have been there, because you know how cutthroat Sam was. That Sam would have probably been sat there in the dugout thinking, "What's he doing?"
True.
You know what I mean? But
you
live and die. You live and die by your decisions sometimes, and fair play, because he was there. You know what I mean? It was a big call, that was.
Indeed. And going back to the Wales-Italy game briefly, the way Danny brings the ball out in the build-up to the Bellamy goal,
second goal,
he brings it out, and the pass he plays up, I think it's to Hartson, and John does so well. He holds the ball up, he waits, and it's the timing of the pass from Hartson has got to be perfect, and he holds it just long enough, and it's just a fantastic goal. But Danny's pass for that goal is massively underrated, I think, sometimes, because you had to bring it out, you had to thread it through the eye of a needle to get it up to John, and like I say, John and then Craig does the best. I did have a question about Craig Bellamy, actually. I did ask Super Kev this as well, but I was interested in sort of your point of view.
What was his golf like?
Yeah. No, what's he like to play with? He's
actually a good golfer, He's a decent golfer. He's had plenty of practice. What's the question?
What's he like? What's he like to play with? What's he like around the team? And
well, as a player, unbelievable player. Someone that you'd always want kind of on your team. You know what you're going to get. He's 110%. Not just obviously with his the quality that he has, but his attitude, his will to win. He can drive a team on his own, and he's very kind of expectant. Then he wants the same from you as a player. If he demands a lot, if he's going to give 110%, then he expects you to do exactly the same. So I wouldn't say he always puts that point across in the right way. He's someone who you have to kind of get to know and understand. He can be a bit misunderstood, and sometimes can come across and say certain things the wrong way. So you do have to be quite thick-skinned with some of the things that he would say. And at times, I think the group could feel a little bit like you're walking on eggshells a little bit with him. Particularly maybe some of the younger players that were in that Wales squad at the time. Because he didn't really, as I said, at times he wouldn't kind of mince his words and stuff. So sometimes you'd feel like you were on tenterhooks a little bit, and particularly the young players who didn't know him weren't used to what he was like. Sometimes there could be a bit of a tension in the air or a bit of a bad atmosphere you'd feel. And I think probably some of the lads would admit to you that maybe when he actually did retire, it was a little bit of a relief from that kind of respect, where the atmosphere almost was a bit different when he wasn't there. You didn't feel like you were kind of under tiptoe around him as much, but he was someone that I always got on fine with. At times he would tear strips off me and stuff, but I kind of respected him and understood what he was kind of trying to do. As I say, you had to be quite thick-skinned at times with some of the stuff that he would say, but he was great for me from a footballing point of view, because as I said earlier, Cam, sometimes if I was trying to manage myself, sometimes in training, I'd train in third gear, or I'd be a little bit, or I'd sulk a little about something. I knew I couldn't do that with Bellas. He wouldn't let me. I knew I had to then be focused and train on my maximum level, because if I was playing against him, he would embarrass me. Or if he was on my team, he'd come for me straight away and be like, call your finger. So from that respect, I learned quite a lot off him, really, in that respect, with regards to attitude and stuff like that.
But I think that also can work in your favour as well, can't it? Because it can keep you on your toes, and I think it keeps your concentration levels up, especially in training in games. And I think every team needs a winner like that. You know what I mean? You mentioned about Willie and Cardiff, that Willie Ball, and you know what I mean? He demanded excellence from everybody, and every team you can do the same thing. You can always name a player or two who leads from the front and leads training and runs a dressing room and runs games, and it takes pressure off managers, coaches. I think even as players that you need these kinds of players, because it's a long year, long season, and the ups, the downs. You know what I mean? The laughters, the cries. You know what I mean? The upsetness. You know what I mean? So you just need somebody there who's consistent across the board, who can pick you up, and it can be serious all of the time. And I think it's so good for a football club to have them kind of players. And you know what I mean? And people sometimes see them as a negative part of football, but for me, they play a pivotal part of a squad team environment, really.
I can remember Willie Boland saying to me before I left Cardiff, before I moved to the Premier League, I can remember him pulling me one day. I don't know if it was after, it might have been after training, and he said to me, "Look, you won't play in the Premier League." He said that to me because if your attitude's not right, blah blah blah. If you're going to sulk about this, that, the other, you're not going to make it. You won't play at that level, and that was how Willie was. He was pretty straightforward.
Spoken, yeah.
Similar to Bella's way he would train, how he would play and stuff, and that was educational for me as well. Watching Willie, how he went about things every single day and stuff, and I took that kind of advice on and kind of knuckled down. And I remember him pulling me then. It must have been a few weeks after. I think we played Colchester and we beat Colchester, and he pulled me again. I played quite well in the game, and he pulled me again and kind of said the opposite. Then he was like, "Look, that's the standards you have to set," kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? That's the level you need to perform at week in, week out, kind of thing. And you're right, Cams, you do need that. You need those kind of players in your squad to kind of drag others along, because we're all different. We all have our different personalities. Some of us look up to other players more than others, and some of those players can lead with what they say, or it might be in their performances or the advice they kind of give out and stuff. So I
you know what I mean? We've all been there as young players when you're getting some like hothead like Willie or Bellamy, you know what I mean, at you all the time, and you think that it's negative all the time, and it's not, and it's, you know what I mean. Nigel Pearson did it at Middlesbrough with me and Mike Kelly, and you know what I mean, as a coach, and you sometimes think that, you know what I mean, that they're having a go at me all the time. How do I, you know what I mean? But they're just demanding excellence all of the time, and it's only when you get a little bit more experience and you see it as an experienced kind of player, especially when you move clubs, that there's one in every club, and you know what I mean, and you take it as it is, but with a pinch of salt, and as long as you do exactly what they want and expect, then you get on like a house on fire, and your standards are set high. That, you know what I mean, training's then enjoyable, it's competitive, and there's got to be an edge to it, because how boring training would be if you just turned up and it was a laugh and it was a joke, but there was no serious and no edge on it, because then you take that on a Saturday and everything would be, and you wouldn't have a successful side or squad or move forward as a group. And you know what I mean, so every club needs it, and you know what I mean, and the only way forward is having a good mix and blend, but that's got to be there as a pivotal part.
Yeah, spot on, mate. Andy, Johnny Wish has sent you a message on YouTube, and he says, Andy, surely Danny has to do an episode of Unscripted and Uncensored.
Yeah, of course he does.
What's this?
Of course he does.
So basically, Unscripted Uncensored is one of the series we do, where instead of it being like an interview where I, you know, do prep and I prepare questions and all this sort of thing, we basically put a couple of posts up on all the social media, and we just let people ask whatever they want. It could be about anything, whether it's football or anything. And then we just do an hour or so of just talking. It could go anywhere, and you get all sorts of random questions and subjects, but it's good fun.
Saying that, if Peaches is still watching, surely we can finish with a bit of word association. That this is the most random word association ever. Sometimes the things you get. But Peaches, if you're still watching, let's finish off with a bit of word association, because we haven't had it for a while.
Yeah, she haven't been on for.
No.
Yeah, so Unscripted and Uncensored. I think Kev did. He did like two bottles of red wine, didn't he? When he did his, didn't he? He did like hour and a half of just drinking red wine, answering random questions.
His nose got redder and redder as the show went on.
I'll definitely get a bottle out for that one, mate. 100%.
Yeah, indeed.
I'll follow
So yeah, my wife just said. So she just messaged on Facebook. She said, "If you thought some of the questions on here were harsh, wait until you do that series, because they'll ask all sorts of crap." But yeah, it's fun. It's just the rules are the rules. It's no editing, no censors, nothing.
Once you've had Bellamy and Willie Boland at you, I can take anything.
Yes. People only like pussycats to compare to them two.
Willie Boland got me and my wife together.
Yeah, story behind that in the side.
He did.
He's a hero. He's like Cilla Black.
Yeah. Well, Danny, when all you and Cav and I used to drink in a tenant in Rada.
I didn't.
My missus used to work there, and I used to drink there. And yeah, I'm not going to tell the story again, because I've told him many times.
You basically didn't have the bottle. You didn't have the bottle to go on.
Well, something like that.
Willie did.
Yeah, Willie just got it. He plays Cilla Black, and he just got it all going. But yeah, and 3 kids and 12 years of marriage next Friday. Here we go. All thanks to Willie Boland. What a story.
Lockdown party next Friday.
Oh yeah. Crack in. So, we're coming towards the end of the show. It looks like Peaches has left. So she was here a minute ago, but she hasn't sent it in. And Richie says, do the Ayatollah boys to finish. So, got to do that, haven't you?
Have to.
Okay, so guys, of course, leave a thumbs up on the video. Subscribe to YouTube. That's the big thing which helps us the most, helps us grow, helps us find other people, and spread the word. Also, a massive thank you to Away Day Apparel for sponsoring the show. You can check them out at www.awaydayapparel.co.uk and check them out on Instagram at @awayday_apparel and at @awaydayapparel on Twitter. They got loads of new t-shirts and designs out at the moment, and especially for viewers and listeners of Ace Podcast Nation, if you use the code AA Podcast Nation, all in lowercase, you get 10% off, as modelled by Mr. Andy Campbell tonight. I believe you've got an away day apparel T-shirt, haven't you?
Yeah.
There we
Yes.
go.
There we go.
And I got a new one last week as well, which is very nice. Very nice.
I've got a new one. Like.
We'll have to get Mr. Gabbidon one as well, I reckon.
I've got a new one. He's been quiet here. Where is he, by the way?
You haven't been in there today, Alan.
I know, where is he?
He's hiding away.
Hope he's all right.
So, standard for coming on the show, one of those T-shirts. No standard.
Hey, he's normally on. He's normally on. He'll definitely have you. He'll definitely give you one, Dan. And he'll just a few. Well, the thing with the T-shirt is you've got to do a photo, but you're not allowed to do a photo in your front room. You've got to do it somewhere, haven't you? So where did I do mine? I did mine outside. I got mine in December.
Outside the Riverside, wasn't it?
And I did it outside the Riverside. Freezing cold it was in the snow. It was just horrible. But got the seal of approval from the boss.
Things you do, mate. Things you do.
Exactly.
So yeah, Danny, thank you for joining us, mate. I really, really appreciate you. We've had loads of messages like this from Craig saying thanks for giving your time, thanks for the memories. Brilliant show, Richie. Says, loads and loads of people have said that. My wife said she couldn't have gone against what Willie Boland said at the end of the day.
Oh. So we never did.
she was scared into it.
You don't take no for an answer.
No, whatever Willie says, you do.
That's right.
Indeed. Thank you to everyone who's tuned in and watched and listened. If I didn't get to your comments or your questions, I apologise. There was a lot today. Next week, we have Cardiff City Chief Executive Mehmet Dalman joining us, which is going to be exceptional. And I'm really looking forward to speaking to Mr. Dalman. And I believe that to finish the show today, we're going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to throw to Mr. Andy Campbell to talk us out to finish.
Yeah, I've just got a little bit of a shout out. So a good friend of mine, family of mine, so Daniel Joseph's brother Sean, he's been raising money for the NHS to buy iPads, etc., for families in the coronavirus department in Middlesbrough at the minute. So they're buying iPads for the family so they connect with each other. So if you can look on my Instagram, my Facebook, my Twitter tonight. I'm gonna retweet every day, and I'm gonna put all the links up and things. Can you have a look? Can you donate what you can? Can you retweet and get as much publicity as we can as possible? Because obviously there's loads going on. There's loads of people raising money. You know what I mean, for brilliant causes. That's it right there on the screen. But I'll put it all over social media tonight for the family and things. But it's SJS Fitness who's doing the Just Giving and the crowdfunding. So please give it a follow. Please give it a look, because it's obviously for an amazing cause. Like, we're all trying to raise as much money as we can for everybody.
Spot on. And thank you to everyone. I'll share and retweet that from the podcast pages as well. And we'll see you next Monday for 7:30 for the live show. Don't forget, Thursday we're dropping a show with the Farm lead singer Peter Hooton, which was a cracking show. Unfortunately, he is also a Liverpool fan, which was painful for me to have to endure. But he is a legend.
We're everywhere.
Yes, well, he's a legend. I got to be fair, and it was an honour not just to speak to you, Dan, tonight, but also I got to speak to the lead singer of the Farm. And tomorrow, I record with Scott Young. What a life I lead.
You do. Top man for tonight, Dan. Really appreciate that. It's been spot on, mate.
Thanks for having me.
Loved it.
Spot on. See you all next week.
Andy Campbell! It's in!
And then the clip will have...
Campbell comes off the bench to